Hi, and welcome to the Unstuck Club. Hi, Di, how are you?
I'm really good. Happy. Well, today when we record, it's Valentine's Day. I know it doesn't go out on Valentine's Day, but yes, here we are, middle of February. Goodness me.
I know. It's been so sweet. Galentine's Day has been a thing today. I don't know if you've seen it. It's just been
Yes,
so sweet. All the girls have been getting together. So I've been getting in my circle of friends, like we've been sending Monica and Phoebe and Rachel and then the Golden Girls. And
I love it. Who comes up with this stuff?
Like I thought about the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought about the same thing, but it has been delightful. It's had a different kind of energy. So it has been delightful, actually. Yeah. We have behind the scenes kind of been chatting about a theme that's been like niggling, especially with me, about hard conversations.
It's interesting because over the last couple of days, I've had conversations with either friends or clients going, I really need to sit down and have a hard conversation with XYZ, or it's really time to set my boundaries. You know, I'm tired of not saying anything. And the other thing I've noticed in the readings that I've been doing, in the intuitive reading, and actually in the tarot life spread, it's like this: put yourself first, speak out, don't hold back, stop worrying about what others are going to think when you speak your truth. So I guess, Jo, it does tie in with the energy of the 9-year.
Yeah. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. You know, there's such a big part of the 9-year that sometimes we can get stuck in some themes when it comes to the energy of the 9, like the theme of letting go, you know, or like the theme. I mean, it's the archetype of the humanitarian, and the reason why it's the humanitarian is because the humanitarian will stand up and do things that bring peace and harmony and rectify so much that might be going wrong. And so it's about, in the letting go, it's about doing it in the energy of the humanitarian with grace and with compassion. And a lot of times that is what gets spoken about. But actually, the 9 is a very honest, straightforward energy. So the 9 is asking us to take all the wisdom that we've gathered, you know, from year to year. And last year in the 8, we should have gotten to the place where we figured out what disempowers us and what empowers us.
Okay.
And now in this place of either you're saying, I am empowered, so I found my voice, or I am disempowered, so it's time to find my voice. And that's really important. And what I honestly believe is that so many people get stuck in not having the hard conversations because they think everything's going to fall apart if they speak the truth. And that's not necessarily true.
I know. I also think we also get hooked on that word humanitarian, but the opposite of that, of course, is the inhumane. And I think that's driving a lot of the hard conversations, is like it almost is like this year as well, like the worst of human behavior is coming up. You know, there's nothing hidden any longer. And I heard a really interesting discussion with Martha Beck, and she was saying about, you know, and it goes back to that, you know, if I speak out, you know, what if they leave me? What if it all goes wrong? What if I lose everything? And she was just sharing her story that she lost everything. I mean, her family, her marriage, her business, like everything. And she said, when I look back now, I'm actually glad it all happened. Not in the moment, she said, but I get now that I absolutely had to walk away from everything. And I think what I'm seeing is people are really being pushed. I had a client who said she's actually fired patients. She's like, I can't deal with them any longer. They are energy vampires. They are mean. They are unkind. I'm not that desperate for the money that I'm going to allow myself to be abused like that.
And then, I mean, a lot of it was sparked because I was sharing with you my oldest sister and myself. I mean, we've had siblings, we've really had sibling stuff along the way. And it's been incredible over the years. And what we always say is that she did her thing. She got her therapy, coaching, help, support. I got my therapy, coaching, help, support. And she took ownership of the things that she doesn't get 100% right within herself. And I took ownership of that too. And we've really done an incredible job on ourselves. And that's actually what helps any kind of relationship. And we go to amazing therapy where the kids don't go to therapy. So I co-parent with her, with my nephews. The kids don't go to therapy, but the parents go to therapy. And we went. And she needed to have a hard conversation with me. And she needed to say to me, there's certain things that you are doing that are absolutely, like they are frustrating me. They're driving me nuts. And I needed to then have a hard conversation and say where it came from. And it was so amazing that there was this third party facilitator. And that's what I really want to make so clear, is that there are so many people out there to help these conversations be facilitated, and sometimes they actually need it. And it was incredible. There were lots of tears. I'm so not ashamed to say I bawled my eyes out. When you get that, your throat is so sore. That crying when your throat is so sore. I felt like a little girl. And it's been over a week now, and it's been amazing. My sister and I have had 2 or 3 opportunities, like in dynamics, where she has said to me, I can see you doing it differently from that conversation because you would have done this. And I've said to her, I can see you doing this differently from the conversation because of the way that I'm responding. But it took a long time, and it took intervention. And I don't have a story of things falling apart. I actually have a story of things just getting better and stronger. And I honestly believe that we don't give relationships enough of a chance. And we've kind of got to, rub up against each other in those dynamics. I've got a client of mine, and I always check in with my clients and say, that's a story I'd love to share. And I actually said it to her. I said to her, this is a story I'd love to share, because she had a complete meltdown. It was the first meltdown in a very new marriage, right? A complete meltdown. And she said to me, at the back of her mind the whole time, she was going, he's going to leave me, he's going to leave me, he's going to leave me, right? And it's made them stronger. It's made them stronger because she just said that everything just exploded and came out. And we need to challenge ourselves and each other in any kind of relationship. And that is hinged on conversation.
Yeah, I've always said that the day that John and I sat down and had our first hard conversation was the day that our marriage went to a whole other level. And until the day he died, it was just, we were always able to sit down and go, I need to talk to you, and then say what was going on. And it really just helped. You have to have that communication with your nearest and dearest. It doesn't matter who they are. And it's always fascinated me that, a group of women will get together and it'll be a bitch fest about husbands or partners. And then they will go home and put up with the same unhappiness. And I heard someone say this week that there are so many people who wake up every day and life isn't good. And I thought, that's just so sad, that you wake up in dead-end marriages or relationships, going to dead-end jobs, because you actually just don't have the courage, maybe just even to admit to yourself, I'm unhappy. And I think I've been thinking about it this week, I think we've also got stuck in this belief, and I think it goes back to probably the self-help industry, is that, I want this perfect, happy life, which is great, but it's never going to be perfect and happy 100% of the time, because that's not the way life works. You and I have things that go wrong. It happens. And we've created, and we've done a lot of work in creating good lives for ourselves, but things still go wrong. And I think people have bought into this fairy tale, but they're not prepared to do the hard things to get there. And maybe the first thing is admitting, my marriage is dead. They will wait until they get sick, and they have a life-defining moment, a near-death experience, and then they're like, okay, I need to change my life. I need to put myself first. Why do we have to keep waiting for these massive events? Like you nearly get taken out in a car accident, or you do get a scary medical diagnosis. It's okay, it turns out to be okay, but it really gives you a fright, and then you start reevaluating everything. Why do we have to wait until that point, or the point where your body just goes, enough, I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted, you have to change? We don't want to, and it's even having the hard conversations with ourselves, in fact.
So I honestly believe, in all my years of working with people, that the whole underlying current of that is really just a lack of understanding yourself, a lack of knowing what you have within you to overcome the worst case scenario that's floating around in your head if you do have that conversation, or what part of you activates when you need to be resilient, or what part of you activates when you need to really step forward and be brave. And and I sat with such empathy. And when I watch and when I listen, all I ever want to do is just pull out somebody's profile and go, you're feeling that way because you don't understand that this is what activates within you when you need to be resilient, and this is what activates within you, when you need to do all of this. And it's we are our personality is built and designed to do the brave things. A lot of this, just let them, is the problem in this hard conversations. Because now what's happening is people are treating you badly, and now you're saying let them.
But you see, but that's because they're missing the other half of the equation. It's let them, but let me. So let them treat me badly. Let me make a choice and get out of this toxic environment. You see, they just focus on the let them, which is all well and good, but that doesn't change what's going on in here. You're still going to be frustrated, angry, resentful. So it's let them, let me, and then doing what is best for you in that situation. So, like, how good the keyboard warriors are. So let them just say the things that they want to say. Let me focus on posting something motivational or inspirational, or let me actually put my phone down and go and do something else. And they only get stuck on the let them, because that can absolutely spiral, because then you're going to go, let them mistreat whoever, let them be cruel, let them abuse animals.
But and in a close personal relationship, it's let them rant, let them vent, let them do all of those things. But when it's aimed at you, it's
exactly.
And I honestly think, I mean, do you have some good examples of people who are having these brave conversations when we look around at our, I mean, I have it in my family all the time, and I've actually put a boundary in place with my family, and I'm like, you can't say that to me, because if you say it to me, I'm going to say it to them. I'm not holding your story anymore. I'm not holding your story, and that's so much of what we're seeing. But I want to come back to the empathy, right? I want to come back to the empathy and go, you're not doing it because you're a coward. You're not having the brave conversation because you're a coward. You're not having the brave conversation because you don't understand yourself well enough to know how you will manage whatever the perceived outcome is. You don't know. Like, I know I have worked so hard to understand myself, and that's why I do what I do. Like, I don't step in and go, I've done a half-hearted job at understanding myself, so let me guide someone else to understand themselves. It never stops. Like, it just never stops. So I know what happens when I get overly emotional. So I know that I'm going to cry. I absolutely know that I'm going to cry. And I now shamelessly cry. I completely shamelessly cry. And everybody around me knows. I mean, you've seen it. I just, it flows. It's the way that I manage it. I do not believe that tears represent weakness. I do not believe that tears represent our misunderstanding of vulnerability. I do not believe that tears take away from the confident woman that I am in any way, shape, or form. And that's the thing. If someone's listening to this and going, I know there's a conversation that I need to have in some kind of way, and I've tried my best to let them do their thing and take my power back, but I can't, then so much empathy going in your direction, because there's a part of you that does not know that you have the absolute capacity to say your truth, speak your truth, and deal with what any outcome comes from that truth.
I want to ask you a question, and I'm interested to see from your kind of professional point of view how you would respond to someone who does this. So I've had a couple of experiences, or I've been involved in a couple of experiences lately, where the person doing the ranting goes like along the lines of, okay, well, I'm sorry, but this is because I was neglected as a child, or it's my trauma from being rejected by my mother. As if that is enough to go, okay, you just have to accept the way I'm behaving because of this. And what I've realized is it becomes our story. And once you've given what you think about this, I'll tell a little story that happened to me this week that kind of stopped me in my tracks. But I hear that often. Oh, I'm like this, it's my childhood, or it's this, or it's my fear of rejection. That becomes our natural reaction response. And we allow those emotions to define how we show up. What would you say to someone who is constantly saying that? I mean, not just once or twice, like all the time.
If it was in a coaching session, right? If it was in a coaching session, I would say your ego mind has done a fantastic job.
Okay.
Of keeping you stuck in the narrative.
Yeah.
And then that empathy again would kick in, because the narrative is the safest space for this person to go. They don't have a better place to go. They don't have another frame of reference. We have been like this victim mode, being in this victim mode and being in the wounded child mode has become this looping story, which it was never, ever, ever supposed to be. Our archetypes that are within us that define who we are And some of us, some archetypes, we all have the same archetypes. If we look astrologically, we all have the same 12 and they're playing out in different ways. Okay. Every single one of those archetypes is supposed to become empowered. Every single part of our personality is supposed to become empowered.
Okay.
So we are, what we are supposed to do as human beings is recognize the low self-esteem, see where it stems from, which is going to be childhood, right? And then know that there is another narrative that we get to live out, which is this confident part of ourselves. But at some point, we have to learn to communicate with ourselves and say, but this is just a looped old narrative. Now the ego mind literally has you hooked in, and we should not remain in the space of the victim. We should not remain in the space of the wounded child. We should not. They need to develop into custodians. They need to become the custodians of who we are and say, watch out, you're about to behave in an old pattern. You're not the little girl who was hurt in that way. And if a repeated pattern happens, it's because you let that part of yourself guide you. I haven't worked with one person or been with one friend who has said to me, I didn't spot the signs in this relationship. Like, I'm only seeing it now. Everyone goes, I saw it. Very few people go, I was so blindsided. Very, very few people say that. That's what I would do. And it is, for me, that's a tough conversation. It took
it is. Yeah.
It's a tough conversation,
I did say to one of them, I said, you've learned so much resilience from those experiences and have created a wonderful life all on your own without the support, just to try and shift it, because and you're right, it does become the story, and then it's now a habit. It's what you default to. And I guess it's because also we don't have, or we haven't been taught constructive ways to voice our anger and our unhappiness. So we just get caught up in that emotion or that trigger, and it comes flying out, and then we feel bad, and then we try and defend or rationalize why we did what we did, and then we go back to it's because of this and this and this and this.
But it's in our traits. It's in our traits. Where your moon was at the time of your birth navigates how you manage emotional conversations.
Okay.
And wherever your Mercury is in your birth chart, Mercury is the governor of all communication and every way that you need to speak. In there, you will actually see these. When I am in my confident space, this is how I communicate. And when I am in low esteem, this is how I default. And there's this. If I could just say one thing over and over and over again, I would say over and over and over again, you have a blueprint. And it's there to guide you. And it's got nothing to do with the prediction of your life or how your life's going to plot out. But it tells you exactly who you are within yourself to navigate and manage everything. Like when I work with astrology, so many times I have to stop people. Like they'll hear about me and then they'll get hold of me, and then the immediate perception is that there's going to be some kind of prediction in what I do. If I do the astrology, the tarot reading, like I've always got to just say, this is not what I do. What I do and why I'm here for you is to help you understand that you can change your entire story in a moment when you move from working within a low esteem trait to a confident trait. You can just change your entire story. And then people go, but I don't know my confident traits. But they're there.
Yeah. So what happened to me this week is I went for an Ayurvedic massage to a lovely German lady. She's been practiced Ayurveda for years and years. And we were chatting about my headaches, as you know. I mean, my whole life, I've been plagued by headaches. My mother had headaches, migraines. And then she asked me a question, and she said, how do your headaches serve you? And I kind of was, that's a weird question. And I sat there for a minute, and then out of my mouth came, they get me out of doing things I don't want to do. And I suddenly, like, light bulb moment, I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, because for a lot of my life, I was the people pleaser. I would do things because doing things was where my self-worth was wrapped up. When you're doing for others, and I was involved in loads of things, and I was secretary of loads of things, and even from a young age was taking on too much. So the headaches sometimes would be, I didn't realize, I mean, they're real headaches. I mean, I'm not like faking them. Mm-hmm. But when she said that, and when I said they get me out of things I don't want to do, it was like, oh my word. I'd never thought about it before, but yes, they did. When things got too much, then to be able to just go like, and with headaches, very often, like if there are migraines, you can't see, and it's a darkened room, and it's silence, and it's quiet. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell?
But there's such a beautiful difference in the way that you are experiencing it, right? Because it's a realization that you've had. First of all, you didn't resist it. You're hearing what she said, and you're putting the pieces together. That's what it's all about. We are managed by our subconscious. We are managed by our subconscious. It takes a fortune of energy to pull ourselves into our conscious, rational mind and actually choose exactly what we're going to do. I've started to, it's such a simple thing, I have started to be aware of how I chew my food. Because we do it so unconsciously. We actually just do it so unconsciously. And I actually started to throw sesame seeds or pumpkin seeds in so that I'm going through a different kind of experience, because I'm always trying to be more present. You know me, that's such a big thing, like always trying to be more present. So there's a difference between you experiencing these headaches and doing something about it, going to this woman and communicating, and then having this realization, and then being so accepting of that this is what I very well may be doing, in comparison to someone just looping in victim mode the whole time. You're not going, my mother did this, so I'm doing this.
I'm doing it,
And those realizations don't end. Those beautiful realizations that you're having, they don't end, because the ego never goes away. The ego, this death of the ego. I'm sorry, I'll argue with anyone.
Yes,
because you'd actually have to remove a part of your brain. You'd have to literally remove a part of your brain in order to do that. And the best that you can possibly do is live so consciously in the present moment and be so absolutely true to yourself that the ego mind does not have to speak up and try and protect you and defend you in any way. But do we really even want that? Because look at this beautiful realization that you've had, and it could actually take something that's so unconscious, that's manifested physically, which is what you do and help people so much with. And it's helped you, I mean, just this inner dialogue with yourself. It's going to totally shift the inner dialogue with yourself.
Well, the next question she asked me was, how would it feel if you actually just did the things that you want to do? And I think that's very much where I am at the moment. It's 5.5 years since John died, and I've really felt since the beginning of this year, like this is the year to really decide how I want to show up and how my days look like. So it was a really good question, and I just said to her, like, I would feel so freeing because, and again, it goes back to those old patterns. I mean, when I was married to John, bless his socks, he was in corporate for a very long time, and even when we worked at home, he'd be sitting there, he's looking at his watch, going, "It's 8:30," and I go, "Yeah." "Are you going to the office anytime soon?" Now the office is like across the grass, and I go, "I'll get there. Your work will get done. It always gets done." But it was always like, it's corporate, even though we're working from home. And I realized, even here, like, I live on my own. I don't have any dependents except the animals. I now have started, like in the morning, I often do a lot of work before I even get up because I find in the early morning it's quiet, I'm fresher. So I'll do my readings, I'll work on content. Then I'll get up. And so what if I only shower at 10 in the morning? It works for me because of the life that I have.
Absolutely.
And that's what she said to me. She said, maybe you're just trying to force yourself all the time to show up the way everyone else, the hustle, you're an entrepreneur, you work for yourself. Get there, we've had this discussion, you and I, about being on social media and social media presence. And I just, when she said, how would you feel if just every day you could show up as you? And I was like, oh my God, that's like so free.
Do you know what I tell my clients so often? There's no big brother. No one's watching. Nobody knows what time you're starting your day. Nobody knows what time you're working.
Yeah.
And I know we're talking to some people who have bosses and we're talking to other people who are entrepreneurs, but there's all these different gaps within your life. You're 100% right. There's all these different gaps. So it's also to really just be able to look and separate those things and know what you love and how you love to do those things and what you want to show up for, and just to separate the places of where you have put yourself in a dynamic or a situation where the stuckness is a choice that you've made, and there's a whole lot of other frustrations that's actually making that thing which is actually quite beautiful now frustrating.
Yeah. And I think you gave in fact, it's such a beautiful word of advice when you said, about eating, you want to be more present when you eat. I think it's the same thing in these situations. It's like, how is this really making me feel? When a friend suddenly starts venting, they're going through a bad time, now they're taking it out on you, a partner or a child. Like, how is this making me feel right now? And then when you can start focusing on that and realizing just how much it is affecting you, then you can go, like, we need to have a conversation. And I agree with you. Find a neutral third person. If you know kind of how the other person is going to react, find someone who can mediate and just keep a lid on it and give you each chance to talk without being interrupted. And then the other person has to listen. But to just sit and take it, it destroys friendships, it destroys relationships, and it destroys us as well. Certainly your physical and mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah. And I am going to drop in here because I do relationship synergy profiling, and it's so important to do. And I've actually had some beautiful experiences with couples. And, a lot of people say to me, get references, but actually it's so personal that a lot of it's difficult to get the references. But my little tip is, if you're a couple and you are going to use astrology, please don't look at the sun sign when you are looking at the emotional conversations you are having with each other. It happens to me all the time. Like, someone will say to me, oh, my partner's Libra and I'm Aries, and that's why. I'm like, nope, you are not communicating. You're not being emotionally vulnerable. You are not communicating from your sun sign. You are communicating from a combination of your moon and your Mercury. So, like, just, and maybe we just have, more of that down the line. But that is just a little tip for if people are trying to figure themselves out. You know, they should be reaching out to you to remove any blockages that they don't know are there, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what you do so beautifully. And reaching out to me, you know, and going, okay, now I know that there's parts of my personality that I don't know, and where could knowing help me get unstuck from some of these things that I'm, you know, some of these conversations that I'm really struggling to have.
I've had my profile with you, I think it's a year now. I still go back to it, and all of a sudden I go, oh, suddenly something catches my eye, and I'm like, okay. I've had a few aha moments simply about how I show up. And, you know, I mean, I think one of the biggest was around eating. It changed the way I viewed food, because now I do what works for me. I don't follow what anyone else does or tells me to eat or not eat. I go, okay, this is what works for me today. It may change tomorrow. And my relationship with food is just developing so beautifully.
That's beautiful.
Without, you know, diets or anything like that. And it's not even about losing weight. It's about, I want to feel comfortable and strong in my body. That's what my intention is. So
yeah, good. So that's a beautiful ending to this. Is actually even just your conversation with your body needs to be honest, like really honest.
And have a hard conversation. Your body will have a hard conversation with you, and if you don't start the conversation, your body will absolutely come and clap you and and make sure you start listening.
Absolutely. Oh, this was wonderful. This was so wonderful. So
loved it.
We're really encouraging you. If you need us, we are a message away. You know, we do this because we love it, but mostly we do this because we're here to help. Really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that, we're going to say goodbye.
Yes, until next time. Bye.
Bye.